Dear students, today I'll be explaining the poem Television. It's written by Roald Dahl. In this poem, the poet warns us about the dangers of excessive television watching, and he advises us to read books, for this will enable us to discover deeper levels of joy and find fulfillment in life. So, there are two main motives, two main themes of writing the poem. One is to tell the readers about the harmful effects of watching television, especially on children, and to inculcate the habit of reading in the children. So, let's get started. The most important thing we have learned so far as the children are concerned is never, never, never let them near your television set. So, in the very beginning of the poem, the poet has told the readers that what is the main purpose of writing the poem. So, he says that as far as children are concerned, they should never be allowed to sit near the television set or to go anywhere near the television set. So, that is the most important thing the poet has learned. So see, never, never is written in capital letters. So as to give more stress and to emphasize more on these words. So he is trying to tell the readers that the children should never be allowed to go anywhere near the television sets. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. So he's saying it's better that not to install this idiotic thing at all. So this is the first adjective used for television in the poem. So idiotic thing, that is used even today. Idiotic box. That is how even television is called today. So this is how the poet describes television initially in the beginning of the poem. So he calls it a idiotic thing, and the most important thing he has learned in the poem is, he says that most important thing I have learned as far as the children are concerned is that they should not be allowed to go near the television set, and it's better not to install television at all at our homes. Then he says, in almost every house we have watched them gapping at the screen. So he's saying, in almost all the houses wherever he has gone, he has seen them. Here is children. He has seen them capping. Capping means to watch continuously without even flicking your eyes. So he's saying that he has watched the children continuously staring at the screen. They loll and slop and lounge about. So loll and slop means they lie in a lazy manner. Lounge again signifies laziness and not being active. Saying the children, they loll and slop and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. So children, they stare on the television screen until their eyes seems to pop out. Pop out means come out. They will not actually come out, but the way they continuously stare at the screen, it seems as if the eyes of children will pop out. So here the poet has shared his experience that in almost every house he has visited, he has watched children gapping at the screen, looking continuously at the screen, and they stare at the screen with their eyes wide open, and they stare in a very lazy and relaxed manner and a very casual manner. That is what loll and slop and lounge about means. And they see until their eyes seem to pop out. And in the next, he has used exaggeration. That is, last week in someone's place were a dozen eyeballs on the floor. So this doesn't mean that he actually saw the eyeballs on the floor. So we could see that indeed it was his experience. He might have seen dozen children sitting on the floor and continuously staring at the television screen. So this is one meaning that we could interpret from what the poet has written here, that maybe there were dozen children sitting on the floor and they were continuously staring. They were continuously staring at the television, and that is what the poet means when he says that he had seen last week, he had seen at someone's place dozen eyeballs on the floor. Or probably he's just trying to say that continuous watching of television without flicking your eyes and gapping at screen would affect the eyes, and he's just exaggerating the thing that he had seen dozen eyeballs on the floor. So it doesn't actually mean that he has seen. So they sit and stare and stare and sit. So he has written here that they sit and stare and stare and sit. So that is what they do continuously. They sit in front of the television, they stare at it. They stare at it and they sit. So that is what they are busy with, and nothing else, until they are hypnotized by it. And it seems as if the television has hypnotized the children. They are so involved in watching the television that they are not concerned about whatever is happening around them. They seem to be hypnotized by the television until they are absolutely drunk. So, again, the same thing. It seems as if the children are absolutely involved in watching the television. They are not at all concerned about what is happening around them. They seem to be completely hypnotized by the television with all the shocking, ghastly junk. So, what is the television showing them? It's all shocking. Ghastly means useless, junk means rubbish. So, they are absolutely drunk with all the shocking, ghastly junk. That means they are absolutely involved in watching the rubbish on television that is mostly unreal and inappropriate for the age. So, the shows kill their valuable time and make them lazy with no room of physical play and exercise. So this is what the poet means when he says that they loll and slop and lounge about. So they have become lazy. There is no more activeness in them, and they spend most of the time sitting and staring the television screen. And it seems that as if they are lost in it. They are hypnotized in it. They are absolutely drunk in it. And what do they watch on television? That is a shocking, ghastly junk, totally rubbish, useless rubbish that they are watching on television. Oh, yes, we know it keeps them still. So, he is very ironical when he says so, that according to the parents, they feel, most of the parents, especially housewives, they make the children sit in front of the television because it keeps them still. They do not do any mischievous things, and they do not disturb the parents. So what do? Oh yes, we know it keeps them still. They don't climb out the windowsill. So they are not involved in any kind of mischievous activity. So parents feel as if they are safe when they are watching television because it keeps them still. They do not do anything mischievous or anything naughty. They do not climb up out the windowsill. They never fight or kick or punch. So do not fight with their siblings. They do not kick them. They do not punch them. They leave you free to cook the lunch. So the mothers are left free, the parents are left free to do their household chores, and they leave them free to cook the lunch because they do not disturb them, and wash the dishes in the sink. So they leave them free to cook the lunch, and they also leave them free to wash the dishes in the sink. But did you ever stop to think? Poet is saying that have you ever stopped and have you ever thought that what are you doing to your dear ones, what are you doing to your children? He's talking to the parents who make the children sit in front of the television set so that they can easily complete their household chores. So he's asking those parents that have you ever stopped and thought to wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved tot? Beloved tot means little one. So he's saying that have you ever stopped this and have you ever thought that what is this doing to your little one? What is this doing to your little child? So in this part of the poem, the poet says that he knows that television keeps the naughty children calm, and when they sit in front of the TV set, they no more do mischievous things like climbing out the window sill or fighting or kicking or punching. They let the mother free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink without any disturbance. But that can't be an excuse to let them sit before the television set, because the poet thinks that this idiotic device does more harm than good. And all this that is written in the upcoming lines in capital letters are the dangers caused to children because of excessive television watching. So that is why it has been mentioned in capital letters, so as to give more stress upon the dangers of watching excessive television, and how the little ones, how the children, they are no harmed because of watching this excessive television. That is what is being mentioned in the upcoming part of the poem. So he's answering to the question. See, there's a question mark here. He's answering to the question what he has himself asked the parents. He asked the parents here that have you, as parents, he asked the parents that have you spent a movement? Have you stopped making your children sit in front of television, and have you spent a moment to think exactly what harm this television does to your loving child? And then he himself answers the question in a very brilliant way. He says, it rots the sense in the head. So what does the television do? It rots the senses in the head. It damages the senses in the head of children. It kills the imagination dead. So children can no more imagine because they're actually watching everything on television. So what do you do when you read books? For example, you're reading a story. So you're reading a story, you imagine the characters doing whatever you're reading. What do you do when you watch a movie? You just see what is happening. So there's no scope of imagination, no? So you just see everything in front of your eyes. But when you read a book or a story, so you can actually imagine those things happening in your mind somewhere. So that is why the poet is saying that by making the children sit in front of television, you're actually killing their imagination and you're actually damaging the senses in the head of the children. So these are the two harmful effects, according to the poet, that are being caused to children who watch television excessively. So coming to the next page, he says, it clogs and clutters up the mind. Roald Dahl continues to argue on how television affects a child's mind. He says that when they watch television, it clogs and clutters up the mind. That means clogs means to stop, and clutters means to fill something with the useless things. So the mind of the child stops working and it gets filled up with useless things, because most of the stuff that they watch on television is fictional, and they are taken away from reality when they watch those things on television. So that is why the poet here says that watching television clogs and clutters up the mind. It makes a child so dull and blind. So the child is made dull and blind. So he can not imagine anymore. His intelligence is lost. He becomes dull and blind to his surrounding because he's so involved in watching the television. He's so keen in watching the television. He feels whatever he's watching is real, and he does not understand what's happening. He's blind to all the surroundings. So that is what this line means. He can no longer understand a fantasy and a fairyland. So the poet here says that children, they cannot understand a fantasy or fairyland because they are so involved in watching the images on television. They cannot understand what fantasy and fairyland in that the children who used to read books could imagine. So they are taken very far away from that fantasy and fairyland. So they are now used to see an image of the likely real virtual reality. So they are seeing everything is displayed in front of them. So if you have read about a fairy, you can imagine how the fairy looked like, right? But when you watch a television, you actually see. So there's no scope of imagination. No, you won't imagine that this is how a fairy might have looked. So you actually see a fairy on television. So you do not no more understand that fantasy and fairyland because everything is there ready in front of you. His brain becomes as soft as cheese. So he's saying that the brain of a child who watches television, his brain becomes very soft as cheese. That means that the child becomes very dull. So again and again the things are repeated but in different words. His power of thinking rust and freeze. So again, he can no more think. His power of thinking is lost. He cannot think, he only sees. He just sees the television, he just stares the television screen and he does not think. All right, you'll cry. All right, you'll say. But if we take the set away, what shall we do to entertain our darling children? Please explain. So now the poet is trying to say that he's telling about all the dangers of excessive television watching. So he's saying that now the readers, especially the parents, would ask him the question that they would ask him this, that how will they entertain their children if they take away the television set. So that is what is being mentioned. He's saying that you'll cry, means you have no other option. You all, that's all right. And you will ask the poet now that if the television set is taken away, what else will be done to entertain the children? So he's saying you will seek an explanation from me now. So he's answering to the question again. We'll answer this by asking you. So he's saying, I will answer this question by asking you another question. What used the darling ones to do? How used they keep themselves contented before this monster was invented? See another adjective for television. He's saying that I know after telling all the harmful effects of watching television, he's saying that he's sure now the parents would ask him that what will they do if they take this television set away. So what can be done to entertain the children? So he says that you will seek an explanation from me. He says that I will answer you this by asking a question. I will ask you that what you used to do and how you used to keep yourself contented. So here darling ones and themselves are the parents when they used to be kids. He's asking them a question that how you used to keep yourself contented when this monster was not invented, before the invention of the television. So what did the children used to do then? So they also had a mode of entertainment then. So what was it? So when before this television was invented, what did they used to do? So he's making the parents realize that this is not the only means to entertain the children. There are other ways too. Have you forgotten? So he's making them remember. So what they used to do when they were children. Don't you know? Well, say it very loud and slow. They used to read. They had read and read and read and read and then proceed to read some more. So, what did the parents do when they were children, when this television was not invented? They used to read. They used to read lots and lots and lots of books. And once they had finished one, they started with another. So this is what they used to do before television was invented. Great Scott, Gadzooks. So this Great Scott and Gadzook is an expression of surprise and amazement. So he says that I am surprised on remembering that one half of their lives was reading books. So the children, they had spent one half of their life just reading books. So they read so much. They read so many books. So this is what the children used to do when the parents used to do when they were children, before the television was invented. So this is how they used to entertain themselves. And this is what the poet wants the parents to, remember. And that is what they can do to their children now. instead of making them sit in front of television sets, they should try to inculcate the habit of reading in the children. So that is what he's saying in these lines. So he's expressing surprise by saying, "Great Scott Gadzooks, one half their lives was reading books." He's saying he's so surprised that they spent their half of their lives reading books. The nursery shelves held books galore. So nursery shelves were filled up with books. Books clutter up the nursery floor. So they were all around. Books were scattered everywhere, on the floor, even in the bedroom by the bed. More books waiting to be read. So there were so many books lined up to be read by the children. So once they finished one book, they started with another, and then the third one. So this is what they used to do. Half of their lives was spent reading books, and books were scattered everywhere. So what kind of books did they read? Such wondrous means wonderful, fine, fantastic tales. Tales means stories. So this is what they used to read. They used to read wonderful, fantastic stories. Stories of dragons, gypsies, queens, and whales. So you could be asked a question that what kind of books did the children read before the invention of television? So they used to read wonderful and fantastic stories of dragons, gypsies, queens, and whales, and treasure isles. So they used to read books on treasure islands and distant shores. So these are the books that the children used to read before the television was invented. So in this part of the poem, the poet reminds the parents that what they used to do when they were children. In those earlier days, the nursery shelves were full of books. The nursery school's books remained scattered on the floor. So in the nursery shelves, the books were full, and they were scattered on the floor. In the home also, the bedroom was filled up with the books, and the books were lying everywhere, and they used to read books on the dragons, gypsies, queens, and whales, and treasure islands and distant shores. So these are books that the children used to read before the invention of the television. Coming on to the next page, where smugglers rolled with muffled oars. Roald Dahl is saying that the children used to read books of smugglers that who rowed with muffled oars. Muffled is a very low sound. Oars are the planks with which the boats move forward. So he's saying that the books which were being read by the children before the television was invented. So he's saying they used to read books on smugglers who rode on the seas or water bodies. They also used to read about pirates wearing purple pants, and sailing ships and elephants, and cannibals crouching round the pot, stirring away at something hot. So the poet is making them remember whatever books they were reading. So they used to read so many books on smugglers, on pirates, on ships, on elephants, on cannibals who are as if they are crouching. Crouching means in a bending position. So the cannibal means people who eat flesh of human beings. So that is kind of stories that the children used to read before the television was invented. So they could actually imagine the cannibals, moving around a huge round pot. So if you've ever seen on a television, you might have seen witch with a huge pot and boiling something inside it, usually living beings, and they're moving around the pot. So that was what the children read in those times. They did not see that actually on television. That was not displayed in front of them. They could imagine that happening. After reading the story, they could imagine all these things happening. So that is how their imagination and creativity increased. No, they could imagine everything. But when you watch television, you see everything. So there's no scope of imagination as such. So that is what the poet is trying to bring about. It smelled so good. What can it be? Good gracious, it's Penelope. So the poet is saying that they could even imagine the smell of that stirring hot substance in the pot of that cannibals. So this is how the imagination of children who read books increased. So they could actually smell that what was being cooked in that huge pot.